All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode 17 with the great Peter Bannister and Mace once again joining us from Maui, the hardest working man in free media. So we're going to kick it off real quick. We're going to find out, Peter, how good this bio is. Peter Bannister is the co-founder and CRO of Mova AI, where he's transforming mortgage and contact center operations with conversational intelligence. With nearly 20 years in finance and fintech, including leadership roles at Fannie Mae and Stream, Peter has built a career turning complex problems into practical revenue-driving solutions. At Mova, he helps lenders coach sales teams, replicate top performer behaviors, plug revenue leaks, and turn messy call data into actionable insights. He recently spoke at the Housing Wire AI Summit 2025, making the case that the future of growth isn't about more leads, it's about smarter conversations. And I would agree with that. In short, Peter's the guy who can listen to your sales calls and show you how to make more money without sounding like a robot. Peter, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
So you got all of that from
that was just ChatGPT. That was it.
That's not bad. I like
there
that.
You go. There you go.
Peter, you should start looking into AI.
Yeah. I'm gonna. How do you spell it? Chat what?
I hear it's a thing. Although interestingly enough for everybody, I had to work a little bit harder this week because LinkedIn has now put a blocker and ChatGPT cannot access hyperlinks to LinkedIn. So damn you, LinkedIn, you're making my job difficult. So Peter, right out of the gate, we always talk about this. Nobody grows up as a little kid going, I really want to be in mortgage tech, right? And especially not kids growing up in Southwest England. At least I wouldn't imagine that was the dream. I would imagine football player or something like that.
I think it was fighter pilot after Top Gun came out was the and then doctor after ER came out. So that's showing my age there, yeah.
So fighter pilot, doctor, fofootball player.
Then mortgage tech, yeah.
Then mortgage tech below.
They saw Terminator and wanted to get into AI.
There you go.
So like right out of the gate, like we talked about this before, but for everybody else, and speaking of anybody who's listening, feel free to jump in, ask any questions that you've got for Peter or the rest. How does a guy from London, I guess at the time, end up in the mortgage industry, or in the U.S. mortgage industry, anyways?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. So I was living just outside. I was living in London. I was working for an investment firm in a little town called St. Albans. And I got a job down in central London. I was, 22, 23 at the time, working for Genworth MI. So Genworth MI had a European operation, Spain, Italy, Ireland, UK, Finland, some of the other Nordic countries. Anyway, so there was a risk role in that. And I was like, look, I'm 22, 23. Do I want to go and live and work in central London? Yes, I do. So I jumped from my sleepy town outside, went straight to central London, had a blast, did a couple of risk roles, did a couple of finance roles, pricing roles. And during that spell, the international chief risk officer for Genworth International, she oversaw Europe, Australia, and I think one of the places, which maybe Asia. And then she left the company and she went to Fannie Mae because she was American. And she then tapped me and said, look, why don't you come across to DC? There's a bunch of stuff we could do, have some fun with, and that was it. That was the interview. So come across, and I did, and it was amazing. And what was funny, I actually took 2 years off. I left Genworth at the end of 2008 with the intention of going backpacking. So Europeans, as you may know, we like to take years off, either before college or after college. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take 6 months off, and I'm going to backpack around South America. And I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, dang, that's going to take more than that. So I took a year off, fully intended to come back. And then I met my now wife at the end of that first year. We went off to Southeast Asia for a second year, teaching scuba diving in Malaysia and Thailand. But then at the end of 2 years, I was like, my brain is going to mush. Like, I'm living in paradise. I'm teaching diving, turtles everywhere, which is amazing. But my brain's going to mush. So I was like, put on LinkedIn, looking for a job, and that's where I got tapped to come to the US and work at Fannie Mae. So yeah, that's that bit. And then 4 or 5 years in the front office in sort of underwriting pricing, and I was always the guy trying to deliver solutions that would automate processes all the way through my career, including Genworth and prior and Fannie and after. So for me, it's always been about how can you take something that is really manual, labor intensive and clunky and, you know, human capital intensive and make it more automated. And I think that's why me and AI are, you know, are fast friends, because that capability is insane. And of course, back in the day, then I'll shut up. But back in the day, it was all, you had to structure the data first, right? You had to have clean data. But now, I mean, it's just a whole new world with just feeding in unstructured data.
Which I'm glad you bring that up, and we'll definitely need to touch on that, because I think there is a bit of a misconception in the space around what your data actually needs to look like when it comes to different AI solutions. I am a little bit curious, completely unrelated, like what was the culture shock moving from London to DC?
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know, London, it's hustle and bustle. It's city center life. There's there's great transportation, a pub every 300 feet. Yeah, in DC, much more, much calmer, much lower rise. You know, in terms of topography and the buildings and things. It was the weather was completely different. Culturally, yeah, I mean, you've got sort of homogenized pockets. So housing, especially in DC, much more homogenized in terms of wealth, right? You've got the rich areas and you've got the not so rich areas. Whereas in London, it's a melting pot. Everything is rammed together. You've got, you know, rich, poor, homeless, and so on and so forth. But yeah, so huge difference. But like anything, you adapt and you change, you assimilate, and we're still here, right? So
yeah, well, in London, I mean, you know, yeah, you did leave it though for SoCal, but
that's true.
But London is, like, as you know, my love affair with London and their restaurant scene. It is some of the best. If you have never been there, like some of the best restaurants in the world. Still the best Indian food I've ever had in my entire life.
That's right.
I can't eat Indian food in the United States anymore after London. So
we got to take you to India.
What? Yeah, PK. I'm waiting for the invitation. Next time you're going, you let me know. We'll go. You got to get me the visa though. So let's talk about Mova. I'm a big fan of what you guys are doing. But you know, for the audience, if you can give them, you know, the sort of, you know, elevator pitch on what is it that Mova does.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mova is a conversational analytics platform, and that essentially means we are ingesting conversations from our customers, who most are mortgage companies, to be fair. But we're ingesting those conversations, and those conversations can be an audio file, a recording, could be a call transcript, could be an email chain back and forth with a customer, with a consumer. We have SMS we ingest chats. We ingest chats that are human-to-human chats. We ingest chats that are bot-to-human chats. We ingest voice AI. So whatever type of conversations you are having, whether you're a B2B company or a B2C company, we bring those into the platform. And then, you know, in the middle, we've got a bunch of different AIs. Yes, large language models have changed the game. They continue to change the game. They're fantastic for assessing context. We have other types of AI and other types of searches that we perform as well, including sort of advanced topic modeling. So all sorts of whiz-bang stuff in the middle. But really, that's great. But for us, it's about driving outcomes. So what outcomes can you improve for your business? So for us at the moment, it's funny, when we got started, I thought we would go into servicing, mortgage servicing. I thought there would be a ton of people with all those calls that are recorded over, let's say, the last 7 years. That's, for me, that's just money. It's hidden gold, because in those conversations, there are leads. There are people telling you, I'm going to be going off to college, or my kids are going off to college. Okay, maybe that's a Could be anything. Could be a home equity loan for college fees. It could mean they're empty nesting and they're going to downsize, so you need a new purchase loan and a realtor. And but those are the types of things that we thought we would get going with initially. But where we've actually focused is on originations calls, whether it's with wholesalers or with direct to consumer. That's where folks have wanted to focus first. So we are helping them understand not only who is doing what, but what's driving good outcomes. So what makes a great loan officer? What techniques and skills do you need to perform a great discovery call with an inbound or an outbound call? When you are pitching a VA loan or an EARL, maybe an EARL, turns out if you not only thank them for their military service, the customer, but also say that's why they've qualified for an EARL, it goes a long way in terms of conversion. So really building that rapport and things like that. So I could go on all day, but there's just so many nuggets of what drives conversion, and then finding the what is super cool. And you get all these charts and these analytics and these dashboards. But about 3 months ago, we launched a new product, which is called Auto Coach. And what that does, it takes the sort of the top performers, figures out how they do what they do so well. And then it does a gap analysis for each of the bottom performers. And it coaches those bottom performers on where they need to improve, what their gaps are. And then everybody sort of rises up in terms of quality and conversion. So, super. I mean, it's nuts, right? What you can do now, but these are some of the use cases which we've attacked.
One of the things that I thought was so insightful when you interviewed, and I apologize, I forget his name, the gentleman.
Oh, Nick. Yeah, Nick Barunda. Yeah.
One of the things that I can't remember if it was you or Nick who brought it up, but it was such a light bulb for me in the audience, was that they've found that their low performers aren't low performers across the board, right? So like we have this idea of like, oh, well, Jimmy's just not very good at closing loans. Right. And it turns out that like Jimmy's actually good at 80% of the process when you compare him against the top performers. It's just that there's this little sliver that nobody's catching. And all of a sudden, when you improve Jimmy by that 20%, Jimmy now is in your top 5 as a producer, rather than what happens normally, right? We let Jimmy out the door. We bring in Jimmy 2.0 that does the same thing as Jimmy 1.0.
I'll give you a great example. This is not scripted, by the way, audience. I'll give you a great example from just this morning with one of our customers. They had one of the loan officer managers had one of his LOs had been given a coaching tip on how to handle an interest rate objection. And exactly what you just said. He was good at everything else, but when he came up against a customer who objected to high interest rates, he crumbled and didn't know what to say. Now he does, because he got the coaching tip and he's learned from everybody else. And now he's now going to go employ that on the next set of calls. I mean, it's exactly what it does. It'll pinpoint. He was great at discovery and great at closing and great at getting the credit pull and all those types of things, but he had not learned how to overcome a rate objection, and now he can. That's
right. Which is it's so massive. Like I think of like the insight you get and when you are able to listen or ingest so much data around the conversations that are going on in your organization.
Peter, does it do any real time? So have you had like real time coaching where it's like, hey, this guy, you should probably talk about this or keep going on about this, or does it do any of that yet?
Yeah, so not yet, and it's a fascinating debate, and I'll open that up now. So I think there's a couple of threads, right? So at the moment, Mova sits very much in post-call analytics, and that can be could be a voice AI you're listening to, it could be humans, could be text and things like that. Because we have focused in mortgage, the loan officer needs to be when they're selling, they need to be natural, they need to be knowledgeable, they need to be clear and concise and fast. The latency with real-time systems, I think there's 2 big problems with real-time. One is the latency. The other thing is, at the moment, it would be cost prohibitive to use an LLM for real-time. Two reasons. Well, one, I think it would still be too slow. And secondly, you have to keep sending the entire transcript back so the LLM has the context, right? So that's one of the issues. The second issue, which is more of a almost like a psychological debate, which is, if I'm the LO and I'm prompted every time something comes up, is that now my crutch? Am I learning? Am I sounding natural enough? Or should I learn about let's take Jimmy and his how to handle a high interest rate. Should I just take objections? Should I just take a few minutes every day and just think that through and get better? So when it comes up next time, I'm ready. So our current platform is very much in that second box, which is we want to coach those Jimmies of the world to be the best they can be. If you get to a world where and also obviously with mortgage, one of the third problem is the calls, you just don't know what's going to happen. Like you can have an IVR and you can have different phone numbers, but it could go any different way. It could meander through. You could go just a 2-minute call and no app, or you go like an hour and a half and cover lots of different things. When you get to a world of homogenized call types, such that you have whatever it is, let's say 25 different paths on your IVR. So by the time they get to you, you know it's because you have missed a servicing payment and you want to make that payment, right? There, I think you don't need a human. You can use voice AI. So when the call types are homogeneous and you've got great training data, voice AI is your friend. For complex call types like mortgage apps, especially with purchase, right? That's such a massive transaction. I think humans are better. So the real-time assist, yes, I think there's use cases for it. But again, I think that's going to migrate over to voice AI. And then for stuff like mortgage, I think you want, let's say you've got 300 LOs in your call center and you've got distribution like this. I think you want to make the middle like the top ones, and the rest can probably go do a different role, because if they can't learn, then real time is not going to help them so much. So no, sorry for that monologue there, but I think it's a fascinating discussion, right?
So Mike Cush has got a quick question, which I think is good, because I think it does play into this, right? Like, do I want the LO to be interrupted during the process versus, after the fact, where they can really ingest it more? But what is the actual process the LO encounters to learn the rate objection? Does she see the transcripts, hear calls?
Yeah, great question, Mike. So yes, post call, and because we're training humans, we don't at the moment, Mova's not coaching on the call itself. We want to coach on the agent. So once a week, they get a really robust dashboard, and they get to see, okay, of the, make it up, 10 different scenarios that I'm being coached on, of which rate objection is one. They click into the coaching tip, and they get a nice description of here's the thing we're checking for. Here's the coaching scenario. Here's how you do it, Jimmy. Here's your common areas that you can improve upon. And then it goes in and it says, here's what you do. And it's got a hyperlink for the call. They can click that. Transcript comes across. They can listen on their headset. They can follow along. But critically, what they then get to do also is look at top performer calls. Click the call, nice. And it slides across, and they can listen to their peers' calls as well. So, yes, you get all the coaching tips, but you also get the links to the calls, so you can read along, listen to those calls, and really understand to a really deep level. And that's what we're about: depth and precision, to a really deep level. Where you can improve. And a lot of this is low-hanging fruit, especially for junior LOs who, just getting started at some of these companies. Of course, they're missing stuff. They've had 30 days of training and then they're let loose. This is a personalized AI assistant to help them get better, right? They're not being graded on it. It's not their paycheck. Paycheck is still locks and ITPs and things, but this is a personalized AI assistant to help them get better of the components of what makes LOs great.
I love they can listen to the top LOs, right? Like, that's the value there has got to be huge. Sorry, go ahead, PK.
I was going to say, is this is another way to position this like an AI sales trainer, personalized AI sales trainer?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, exactly right. And I think we're actually seeing performance tangibly move upwards from the red to the green, right? And every component that we're training on, to your point, Andrew, right? If we can get everybody up just a little bit or a lot in certain areas, it'll fill all those gaps, and you start to get more well-rounded LOs. They win, they make more money. The company wins, they make more money. I mean, that's really, what it's all about. What we're starting to see. Yeah, it's. But I think that's right. Personalized sales, AI coaching, PK. Yeah, absolutely.
So shifting a little bit, this is more of a sort of technical, or maybe not technical, but just procedural thing, how you deal with. I have to imagine that you get, because I know we do, hundreds of like ideas of like, hey, you know what you guys should do? Hey, you know what you guys should do? How do you right? Like every customer has like a new use of like AI, and you're like, okay, this stuff's not easy, right? Like I think that's the other problem, is everybody thinks that you can just whip it up in an afternoon, right? But how do you find that you guys balance that out, right, with the roadmap of kind of, you know, sticking to, okay, this is where our lane is going to be, while also, you know, being able to best, you know, appease those, whether it's prospective clients or existing ones?
Yeah. So I think, and I'm stealing this quote. I wish I had come up with it, but I didn't. But there was a LinkedIn quote several months ago which said, my product roadmap now is, I don't measure it in years, I measure it in months. I think that's very, very true for us. It's moving. AI is moving so fast. And then I bumped into the CTO. This is an interesting one. I bumped into the CTO of Rate. In fact, you were there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And he said something really interesting to me as well, which was that almost like not another voice AI provider. Like he's got to the level now where he thinks voice AI and mortgage has become pretty commoditized, which I thought was a really interesting perspective. So roadmap, we've been going just, I don't know, about 2.5 years, something like that. So in the early days, when you have sort of 1 or 2 customers, well, they are your roadmap, right? Because you're trying to get a startup off the ground, and you pivot and you twist and turn. Now, yeah, we're listening every week, and we write those down, and we have them in a Kanban board, as you'd expect, and we sort of debate and discuss at the executive level what gets in and what doesn't. But for the first time ever, next week, we're actually hosting a customer roundtable. This was born out of the Housing Wire Summit. So I had dinner with Nick from Prosperity, and then Ben from Spring EQ, and then a prospective customer as well. And the conversation between the 2 customers, I wasn't really involved. They were just riffing back and forth. So I was like, it's amazing. They're both learning from each other. They're also coming up with new ideas. So I said, okay, so next week we have a more formalized roundtable on Zoom, but with 4 of our largest customers who are using the new coaching capabilities, because they've all said stuff that they want. And now I want to bring that together and have them all talk to each other and try and rationalize to see what the common ideas are, the most value added ideas, and we'll go build those. I mean, that's really, but it's, you know, for us, we're at a level of scale now where we've got that capability and enough customers to and enough people using it every day to bring that together. So super excited to see what we're going to find with that group.
That reminds me of the CIO Council for Salesforce. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but they would have CIOs from certain regions, and they'd have a meeting, and they'd go in the room, and they had someone that would kind of be a mediator to get them to talk, and everybody else from Salesforce had strict, you are not allowed to talk during this like meeting until afterwards. It was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds similar, but my customers, I think, will not need any help to get talking. So it's they're a vocal bunch.
Okay, so oh, sorry, go ahead, Mace.
Who is your ideal customer? You mentioned DTC and wholesale. Do you see retail models picking up on this a lot? I see hesitation. We kind of talked about this a little bit with KP last week. You know, the net branch managers who, you know, someone's listening to me. You know, what is your ideal? What do you see your ICP right now?
Yeah, I think it is still direct to consumer or wholesale. That's where our biggest success. Scale is helpful because as you're learning from the best and teaching the rest, you really want to have a decent population to go fishing in. So yeah, direct to consumer, wholesalers. I mean, retail. One of the tech challenges for retail right now is unless they're recording their calls. But I keep hearing from speaking to Greg and others in retail that they're on their cell phones. Exactly right. Yeah. Yep, that's exactly right. So until you can change that, that's a massive cultural shift. You know, we unfortunately we're not going to be able to help. But you know, there's a shortcut, which is you can use a voice over IP still from your cell phone, but it goes through the central system. But yeah, that's one of the issues there. But yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, we work with banks in regular consumer banking. We have healthcare customers as well, but majority is mortgage. But the platform's agnostic to industry, so you've got, but you have a lot of, and because I'm from mortgage, it's definitely easy to get started with a mortgage company because you've got so much knowledge already.
So the thing I'm waiting for, and you're going to have to tell me the first customer, unless you already have one, but I'm waiting for your first customer who's using AI voice agents to make calls, and then you're listening to the AI voice agents and coaching the AI voice agents and how they're performing. Have we seen this yet? Because that seems like the perfect another perfect use case.
Yes, it's coming. So very soon, our largest customer, as I understand it, we will have those recordings from the voice AI. But then I was talking to, I think it was actually KP yesterday, very similar topic, and I said to him, yeah, if Mova can feed into the voice AI, and because that will, don't make it guess, give it your best people. So the best people at your organization that Mova has found, feed what they do into the voice AI and replicate that. Don't just start from scratch, right? So I think there's a chicken and egg, but the idea is yes, we will soon be listening to voice AI. Because the other thing you want to track with voice AI is and I phoned Marriott this morning to have a discussion with them, and it took me about 3 minutes and a lot of shouting to get to a human, because I knew the IVR voice agent couldn't help me because it was a really particular task. But I'm coming in hot right at that point. I'm annoyed. I just want to get in there. So when we're working with overseeing voice AI, we're going to want to assess, well, what's the sentiment of the customer at the beginning of that segment with the voice AI, and when they drop out of containment, are they happy or not? Because if they're not, then you can go back and retrain the voice AI. And I think that containment piece is going to be fascinating. Like if people are happy, great. And or if you manage to save yourself a bunch of human calls, even better. But if you're like Marriott, where you just annoy the customer, same with American Airlines, right? If you just annoy the customer with the IVR first, then you've got a lot of work to do, and we can help with that oversight. But I think the key is there. You get to prove it. Here, execs, everyone's miserable because of your IVR experience. That's
right. It is painful how bad some of these large companies are at moving. I think the unfortunate thing is that what happens inevitably with the American Airlines and the Marriotts of the world is they go and hire these giant consulting firms because they think that's what they should do,
right,
rather than bringing in a smaller startup who obsesses over voice, and that's the only thing they obsess over, who can actually bring them because there's way better products out in the market than what Marriott or American Airlines uses currently.
100%. That's right.
So it's amazing to me. Mike Cush had asked another question earlier, which was, how much work would be required to support a new industry? But based on what you said, I think it's very little to almost nothing. I mean, again, your product like ours, we're very industry agnostic. It just comes down to what's the data, where is it, and how do I'm oversimplifying things, obviously, but to a large degree, it is really just, okay, where's the data? How much is it? How are we pulling it in? And then turning around and coaching basically based on that.
Yeah. And I think where we have seen the greatest acceleration from zero, from day one, we turn on the pipes and the calls are coming in to results. It's great if you've got a couple of people who are not necessarily dedicated to using the platform, but they have analytical experience. They have the pace. They understand the business model and what they're trying to achieve. So if you've got somebody who knows the data, knows what they want to achieve, and oftentimes we're replacing legacy speech platforms, so they know what they had before, and they've got that background and knowledge. So yeah, if those sort of components make it far easier to get stood up and get going. But if not, then there's a lot of self-help and training, and of course the Mova team, the customer success team, is there for the first month or so, heavy, right? Usually on site getting things up and running, showing value quickly, getting dashboards built, getting the coaching built, so they have a level, a platform to work off of. Within the sort of first 4 to 6 weeks is what we typically do. But yeah, and that's one of the other challenges. If you go into someone who's never had speech analytics and they think AI is a magic bullet, then oftentimes what you have wowed a different client with, they have a more muted response to, which is fascinating because they're coming in cold. Well, yeah, I thought it was magic and it is. My expectations are met. Versus, I know it's not magic and now it is. So it's interesting. But yeah, it is industry agnostic, and you just need a little bit of a analytical mindset to figure out what you want, just like anything else, any other analytical tools. It's always helpful if you.
But it's just fairy dust, Peter. Can I vibe code this over the weekend?
Yeah.
So you guys have been at it for, you said, about 2.5 years, right? And again, you and I do different things with data, but we ingest a lot of data, right? At the end of the day. And so, ballpark, just for people to understand, right? Like, how long would you say it took until you had the proper architecture to quickly ingest the data, right? And then be able to restructure the data in order for it to be usable, to then produce out the results? I mean, I assume that took you months from an engineering perspective, right?
Yeah, and we were fortunate that as we gained customers and volume, they scaled up predictably. But now, I'll give you an example. We take in probably 100,000 calls a day, so 25 million a year, and we are producing the output for each of those calls within about 60 to 90 seconds of the call hanging up. So think all of those calls coming in, as they hang up, processed within a minute to minute and a half. They're on the dashboards, they're in the coaching tool, and if there are what we call red flags, we have a red flag report, which means that something has gone bang. Maybe it's a compliance issue, maybe it's something somebody said, a bad word or whatever, and it's been fully context checked by the LLMs. You get instantly notified within about 90 seconds, so you can quickly go remedy that and potentially have them call the customer back to apologize or have a supervisor look at it, whatever it might be. So yeah, about 25 million calls a year, 100,000 a day. All processed within about 90 seconds, something like that. So yeah, it took a little while to get there, but now we feel super comfortable that I think we're running, I don't know, some technical terms about threads and memory and things like that is above my pay grade, but I think we're running somewhere around 30-ish% of current capacity just to keep it nice and safe. So we got lots of infrastructure to scale up as call volumes change. Yeah.
Peter, can you talk a little bit about the regulatory? I'm sure there's a lot of people watching just being like, hey, my compliance guy is already freaking out just hearing you talk. What does it come from? Like, hey, I have to tell you this call is being recorded. I'm guessing that's already there. Who owns the data? Like, just kind of dive into what any lender would, you're kind of one pager that you try to stop a lender from freaking out, or say a compliance officer from freaking out.
Yeah, it's actually a 3-pager, so I'll give you the highlights of some of those. But yeah, no, it's a great point, right? So I think firstly on the consumer side, if you think about what was happening before at every one of our customers, they were already recording the call, and they were already listening to it. Not all of them, maybe 1% of them, but they were listening. So the actual, but AI, Mova and AI is just a force multiplier, so you can do it for every call. So that has actually not changed, and that a lot of compliance folks get very comfortable because the disclosures haven't changed, the actual thing that we're doing hasn't changed, and we're not live voice AI, so you don't have to disclose anything new. It's all the same. So everybody gets very comfortable very quickly with that piece. Second thing I would tell you, we focus on, of course, we have all of our InfoSec and certifications, and we've been through the ringer. Obviously, some of the logos that are on our website of our customers, you can imagine the ringer that we've gone through in terms of InfoSec reviews and things like that. So people get very comfortable with our InfoSec posture. And then in terms of the data itself, so you have, sometimes we're ingesting the audio file, which is unredacted. Of course it is, right, because it's a recording. And then we ingest that, we process the transcription, we redact any information you want redacted, socials, credit card numbers, any PFI that you don't want to show. And we let people choose. There's a menu of options as to what you want to redact. And then we only store the redacted transcript in the Mova platform. The audio is deleted out of memory before it ever gets to our disks. It was never stored. But then what we do, so you can remember earlier I said people can listen to the calls when they in the coaching tips. We have I think it's called a signed URL, again, above my pay grade from a tech perspective. What it means is when they press play on the audio player in Mova, it's linking back to the mothership behind the firewall. And the only people who can listen to that audio are people in the building, because of the IP list, the IP addresses are restricted to the building or people on the VPN of the company. So even we can't hear them Mova. So you've got a plethora of and a menu of options depending on your risk appetite in terms of how you choose to ingest the data and how to use it. But so far I can confidently say 100% of the time that we have we've never had a customer say no because of those. And we have banks and big mortgage companies and things like that.
I would imagine a bank or someone who's very compliance forward would probably say, at the third page or at a fourth page, you probably already have it, which is you guys weren't listening to all these calls anyway to help them with compliance like training and stop saying certain things on these calls. Now we actually are looking at every single call and we see that Jimmy is actually saying, I will give this to you for free and no cost. And, Jimmy, stop it.
Yeah, but also, and Peter and I have talked about this, to me, like from a compliance officer perspective, is a dream, right? Because the thing that would terrify me from a compliance perspective is, what are the state regulators going to find that I didn't find, right? Because, and Peter, you have this great chart at the summit that showed like the evolution of listening to calls and like what it sort of looks like, right? Like now, if you're using Mova, the reality is if somebody curses at a customer or breaks a compliance violation or whatever, like boom, same day or next day at worst, I'm able to address that issue. I'm able to document it. When the regulators walk in, it's like, boom, here you go. Here's every violation I found over the last year, and here's what I did about it, right? So,
well, yeah, that's exactly right. And we're even tracking, Mace, to your point, we're tracking, did the LO state they were on a recorded line on every call? So the fact that the very compliance component that you need to keep yourself safe, we're actually even checking that. So it's kind of a chicken and egg. But then what's nice with these compliance violations, if they exist, you've then got the auto coach to autonomously say to the agent, you missed your recorded line disclosure on 18% of your calls today. Do better, right? On whatever message you choose to write. But so the compliance officer not only, to your point, Andrew, gets to find out, eyes open, what exactly is the placemat of all the compliance. It's then autonomously coaching, so it's doing their job for them as well. So you get to sort of, and then you can see the charts go up and the performance get better. And one of our larger customers in the Philly area, their compliance scores have gone up. I think it was like 30% on average, and across most agents or all agents, 30% in like a 3 or 4 month period. Just boom, 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 boom. Just constant reinforcement, constant monitoring. And ironically, half of that 30% was because they knew they were being listened to. Because they knew they should have been doing the compliance things.
Oh, 100%.
And then now I know. Okay, I'll pay attention. So
once people know they're being watched, like it definitely changes the attitude.
Yeah, if you go, shout out to all the Jimmies that are top producers. Hope you don't feel shot at.
Well, but also like think about it, right? Like now the top producers get to be mentors without having to do any of the work, right? Like
yes.
Now I don't have to put Susie to sit on a call with Jimmy and telling Jimmy how to do his job better. Like Jimmy gets the direct insights from Susie without her ever having to lift a finger. Have you seen this? Like, so servicing seems like a huge unlock area as well for this product. Like, have you guys seen much, interest and I get it. Like sometimes you just got to kind of heads down in one area and, there's enough there to focus on. But again, servicers who have to constantly worry about compliance. Have you guys seen any interest from there or had conversations?
Yeah, no, 100%. So one of our larger customers are actually about to bring servicing in-house. So we're going to get our teeth into those calls, which is going to be super great. And I think then you get a use case and some proof points, and then we'll go and sell that. But yes, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, we actually wanted to go servicing initially. That was what we thought was going to be the gold for us. But turns out that revenue, well, at the moment, of course, right, revenue is king. So if you can help drive revenue in sales, so a lot of our sellers, we haven't had much contact with just services or subs, right? It's been the seller services. We've got both, so they have all focused on the originations to start with, just because of the environment that opening up the wallet, opening up the procurement purse for a compliance solution, which isn't necessarily going to show. It's certainly going to show all the intangible benefits that you've mentioned about. Now I know everything. I've got great regulatory, coverage, but it's less easy to get the CEO or the C-suite to sign off on a compliance tool versus, well, hell, if I can use this to make my LOs better, then I'll do that instead. So
until they get fined, and then when they get fined, that's when you swoop in. You're like,
no, that's right.
I could have saved you a couple mil. So on that point, right? ROI, obviously, that's always the big discussion here. How do you guys? What's the pricing, generally speaking, look like? Like, how do you guys? Is it a usage basis? Is it enterprise? So I know sometimes that's client to client also. So
and Peter's probably full. You just raised a rate question, Andrew. He's probably been coached already on this as a chief revenue officer. So go ahead and give us your response now, Peter.
Yeah, how do I not answer this question politely? Yeah, that's right. No. I mean, look, and this was actually one of the hurdles we had to overcome at the very beginning. So it is a consumption based model. So it's per minute, right? So per audio minute, or the equivalent for emails and chats. But that was not to sort of explain how LLMs, the cost of an LLM works 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, before most people had much more than just a ChatGPT in their hand. It was actually quite difficult to sort of to explain why we charge, how we charge, and also why you can't just fall asleep at night with your elbow on the enter button and ring up a big AI bill, right? They have restrictions in place such that you can't do that. So that was actually one of the first hurdles. But now I think most people understand that there are tokens, these things that input tokens and output tokens and all the things. So we have a very simplified way to build. But yes, essentially it's consumption based, just because we want to match our cost structure with usage, and that but now it seems to be very much more normalized in the industry that you need to charge for the AI, right, that you're using
based on consumption.
I think also, and the way we look at it is like, to your point, like I want to ebb and flow with the industry and not just enterprise seat licenses, right? Like we're in a little bit of a different area, but ours is consumption as well, right? Or usage. And that's like, if somebody's not necessarily leveraging on our side, it's like if somebody's not leveraging the tool, well, then why would I want you to pay for that? Right. It is still tough because of like ChatGPT, right? And Claude and things of that, where people are like, well, I just pay $20 a month. What they don't realize is how much money ChatGPT is currently losing.
I don't know if you guys have been getting this, but I get these emails from companies or subscriptions that I previously had, but they're all sending emails saying, hey, we're changing our pricing model all to usage based, or consumption. It's like a very common practice that's happening nowadays.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Which again, it makes all the sense in the world to me, and I think it's also the only way that AI can scale up. There was a really funny meme. I don't know if it was on Instagram or LinkedIn, and it was like, you pay Cursor $200 a month, and Cursor for a license, and then Cursor pays OpenAI $500 a month, in token fees, $300 of which is coming from funding VC. And then OpenAI
Right.
pays Microsoft $1,000 a month, 500 of which is coming from VC. Right. And it was like this constant, like the can keeps getting kicked down the road right now in AI. And it's just not sustainable, for I think a lot of these companies where they are saying, oh, I'm just going to do an enterprise or a flat fee, seat license, but the cost of the seat is twice what they're collecting from a fee perspective, right? And how do you charge, ChatGPT, great example. I mean, I use it friggin' 1,000 times a day, right? My son, who also has a license, uses it 10 times a day. We pay the exact same amount, but I'm killing OpenAI. I can assure you, I'm spending way more than $20 a month in tokens when it comes to that front. So, anyways,
well, I think not to get too deep down the technical, but one of the interesting things that we found recently when they launched GPT-5 a couple of weeks back, we were like, oh my goodness. And we tried it out. It was like, oh my God, it's so much better. This is incredible. Like in our world, in the sort of conversational analytics space. And I was like, let's go. Let's launch to all our customers because it was cheaper than GPT-4. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's so good. Let's get it out there. Turns out, a bit of a bait and switch. While the input tokens were cheaper than GPT-4, and the output tokens were the same, they had a setting deep inside the API called reasoning. And if you had it on, I had it on either medium or high. So that's why it was so good, even the nano model. But it was costing like 2x a GPT-4. So I was like, little bait and switch. Of course it's good, but the reasoning tokens, the amount of time it was thinking about the answer to achieve the result. So it was great, but it was just hidden fees behind the scenes. So anybody else thinking about just letting loose on 5, just be aware of the reasoning tokens. And that's about as technical as I can get on
we're still Team Gemini over here, but that reasoning model has just worked incredibly well for us. We didn't have a lot of success on open AIs, but slightly different. We'll have to go try 5. Sorry, PK, you had a question?
No, I think Mace was about to say something.
Oh, I thought Peter was about to have a positive experience with GPT-5. I was like, oh, I mean, there's some good to it, but I liked the individualized models you could use, and it was better from a technical perspective.
Which is so interesting because I hated that. Like I loved GPT-5 because I was like, it's finally.
You're using it like a boomer. Like I'm talking about, like.
Peter Mace categorized me into the boomer category a while back, and so here I live.
Yeah, my wife loves it better too, but like if you're using it for anything technical, it was better having it segregated.
I agree. I understand where you're coming from that perspective. You don't even use it. You use Claude anyway, so.
Oh, we use them all, dude. I use them all. But yeah, it is fascinating. Like my wife had my phone the other day, and she was using my GPT client, and I was like, "Hey, I don't want my model getting some of these clients. Like, get off my like go like get your own phone." I'm over here deleting the chats she started.
Oh yeah, my kids had access to mine, and I was like, "Absolutely not! You were not messing up my my memory on that front point." Hey, Chris, you're the one with the good memory, and I always screw up and forget this. Do you remember Key's question?
Wow, you had to lead it with that, like
I'm the boomer.
He buttered me up, Peter. He's been recording his own calls too. You have a good memory. What was last week?
Well, according to you, I'm a boomer, so there's no way I can remember it.
I do not remember it.
All right. Well, there you go. Never mind. We'll scrap that for this particular week. So, Peter, what's next on like? Are there? Let's call it the next 6 months out, and obviously you can talk about what you want and not, and I get that. But any big shifts that you sort of see from over other areas that you kind of see you guys moving in over the next, again, let's call it 6 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple different flavors of what's coming next. I think I'm probably hopefully my technical co-founder is not watching this, but I think one of the very cool things that I want to achieve is at the moment, the coaching tips are text-based. So you get an email that you've had a tip, and you click it, and you log in, and you read, But I think for me, we want multimodal ways to consume that as a recipient. So where I want to get to is that you have it in sort of a podcasty form. So I know that Google has a fantastic podcast voice AI that's just reading the script but the back and forth and the way it naturally flows between the participants. So the way I want to use that, I think, is to have somebody who's reading the advice, but then when they come to pull the audio from either the agent themselves or the top performers, we're splicing in the audio of the sections that are relevant. So hugely complex to do this, but I think if you could work in a way such that, and then you could have that podcast, that person could be listening to it, running, driving to work, whatever it might be. They can consume it in a different way. So that's one thing. I think next, what's going to be fascinating, and there's lots of sort of fundamental challenges with this, but we really want to build on what we call journeys. And for us, journey means, okay, somebody raised their hand on a digital form, so they did an app. Okay, well, they come in and then they have a phone call, and maybe then they get a text, and then they get an email, and then they get another phone call. So following that, and maybe it doesn't just stop at sales, it then goes to processing and underwriting. So you start to piece together all of the conversations in a journey, and you get really precise and a really precise understanding of, well, yeah, because LO is just obviously the tip of the spear, but the back office, they've got to get that loan funded. So where in that funnel all the way down are most of the customers dropping out? Is it in sales? Is it in processing? Is it in underwriting? Right. Is underwriting being set up by the LO with unrealistic expectations? Yeah, it'll take 2 days. No, our SLA is 2 weeks, right? And so how do we string it all together across different channels of information and really, truly understand the customer journey? And that's B2C. It's also B2B. One of our big customers is a big B2B player in the broker space. So, what is the customer relationship health over the last month? Are there any red flags that I need to know about as the head of lending or the chief growth officer, especially for my top guys that I need to go and give white glove treatment to, and all these? So huge potential, I think, in journeys, in ingesting those tips in different formats, and then I think there's going to be more direct feeds into the voice AI to help coach those and get those better. To your point, lots of things that are on deck, but and then you never know. Next week after our roundtable could be a whole different direction. So we'll see.
I'm stealing that idea. That's one of the smart. That's really is a brilliant idea for anybody out there who's got a SaaS company, because when you bring all those clients together, also then they hear everything. So that, because I think a lot of times if you're asking a client for feedback and what they'd like to see, they're the only voice in the room, right? So they don't realize there's another 30, 40, whatever it might be, voices. When you bring them all together and they sort of see that, also probably I imagine even at the small one that you did, someone else's idea spurs an idea in somebody else, and it goes full circle, right? It's like my favorite quote ever is for Steve Jobs, which is, the first idea is the worst idea, right? And so if you can have that dialogue, they're going to take, this feature, and it's going to get that much incrementally better with the more voices in the room talking about it. So kudos to you guys.
Yeah, and it's funny, even as we've deployed the platform and the new technology, the last several months, the use cases that what the customers are using the data for was nothing we'd ever envisioned, which I think is also cool. So that those part of that auto coach system where you do the first step is finding out why the best of the best. That's now being used as top-down training. It's also being used as a hiring guide. So when they're hiring LOs, they're looking at the list and they're saying, okay, well, when you handle a rate objection, how do you do it, right? And they're able to say, well, no, if you do it like the best, or you know what I mean. So it's gold. Yeah. It's gold. You can use it. So it's okay. For us, it's okay. Well, that's fantastic. So we're using that for the coaching, but how else can we use it and serve it up? Because there's so much value. So much value. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
yes.
it makes all sense in the world. Peter, is there anything we haven't asked you that we should have?
Ooh, cool. You did not prompt me with this or any questions. So, no, I mean, look, I think we've covered the usual question is the one that Mace asked, which was about real-time coaching, and we sort of covered that. I think voice AI we've covered and how we feed into that and are sort of complementary over the top. We've talked about industry agnostic. Yeah, I think we've covered a ton. I'm trying to think. I mean, look, if obviously Mova AI is the website, and if you put a /HW after the link, there's actually a form we put up for the Housing Wire conference where there's a white paper on conversational analytics. So that's actually worth a good read. I don't know. Is that the same barcode QR code from last week, or is that a different one?
No, that should be the QR. That's the QR code for Mova AI.
Okay. So if you just put
that'll take people to the website, but /HW.
Yep, HW, and then that will bring up a place where you can go download the white paper, and that's not a salesy thing. It's just a very much the sort of the pyramid that Andrew is describing. There are 5 levels. Level 0 or level 1 rather is listening manually on a headset. Level 5 is the full sort of contextual coaching that we have and everything in between. So yeah, no. I mean, I think sorry, that was a shameless plug, but
no. I recommend people looking at it and look at like where are you at comparative, because it does give a really good snapshot of I think where the industry is from. And there's no better way for me to put this, but from the least amount of what you're doing to the most amount of what you can do. It's a really good chart for you to sort of see and understand where you sort of land on that from that perspective. So,
yeah. And this is, I think you mentioned this earlier with the regulator, but this will become an imperative. We're not going backwards here. We're not, people aren't going to suddenly pick up headsets again. This is every mortgage company who has a call center and recording calls, be it and banks and healthcare, this will be a normal in 2, 3, 4 years. This will be normal. So yeah, now is the time. Folks who are adopting this type of technology are getting a leg up on the competition. I mean, that's really
well, and I think your tool, like we said, like even as you start as an organization to implement voice agents, now I would almost argue the tool becomes even more important, right? Because now it's like ironically it becomes almost your human in the loop, right, for the AI voice agent, but also now you have the data to train that voice AI agent. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Mova make an acquisition. Might make sense. Anyways, Chris or PK, you guys have anything else that you want to inquire?
No, I think one of the questions you ask a lot, Andrew, that I like is what's one way you've used AI personally?
Oh, yeah. What is a way you're currently or creatively, Peter, using AI just on your own, right? In your own life?
Yeah. So I do use a separate channel or a separate project rather in ChatGPT, the paid version, so it's all private. I have my pipeline in there. So all I do is either talk to it. I come out of a meeting, come out of a call, or I'm on the plane. This one moved from prospecting to demo or NDA and I have it keep a track of my pipeline because I've tried HubSpot, I've tried spreadsheets, I've tried, but I've just love that structured nature of those tools. I've always struggled with. So now, because it updates the memory every time, I've got my pipeline in there and I just say, update, please, pipeline update, please. And it tells me exactly who's in there, where they are and what the follow-ups are. And it asks me questions. Would you like her? Yes, I would. So it's not, it's about 70% of the way there, but there's no doubt in my mind that this will be someone's going to come and crack the nut on fully unstructured CRM, but it's super helpful.
A Salesforce killer is coming. Yeah. Mark my words. Thank God.
As I vacation with the Salesforce engineer.
Sorry. Well, at least he's an engineer. He'll be able to find work somewhere else. Sorry, Mark Benioff. Somebody's come. Peter, it's funny. I love the fact that you brought that up because we've talked probably ad nauseum on this show about like CRM killers because I just don't.
Oh, funny.
I just don't see because I'm like you, and I always say, show me a business development person who's good at updating their CRM, and I'll show you a crappy business development person.
Right.
Because the great ones don't like that structured of me having to open up this application, and I'm awful at updating HubSpot as well. So, Chris, who's our guest for next week? I should probably know the answer to that question, shouldn't I?
Let's see. According to our spreadsheet, that is very
organized. It's Kelly Yale.
Kelly Yale
from Octo Strategies. Peter, we'll actually remember your question. Well, Chris will maybe. We always have our guests ask a question of the next guest. And so I don't know if you know Kelly Yale from Octo Strategies or if you know Octo Strategies. She is the chief marketing officer, I believe, over there. Okay. I don't know what that was.
I was sorry, I was being a boomer just now.
You're also talking to your phone in the middle of public. So Octo is really focused on like digital marketing strategies.
Yeah.
And I think AI in that particular space. So I know we just put you on the spot to ask a question.
Well, I mean, I think I would lean on. I think I would expand on my answer, which was okay. So I'm using AI as a CRM, like because I just how I work. For me, it's okay. How can I? And I'd love to know the answer. How can I leverage AI to do more of my content? Because I'm still, I'm very particular. I'll have AI help me get started, but I'm still there polishing for ad nauseum, right, to make sure it's just what it needs to be.
By the way, your content always makes me feel bad about myself. So that's how good it is. I see Peter's posts and I'm like, why can't I be more like Peter? So you do a phenomenal job. For anybody out there, if you're not following Peter, you really should.
I appreciate it.
Put out very thoughtful content and it's abundantly clear that you put a lot of energy and effort and love into it. So,
but no, I think for Kelly, it would be, how do I get out of a sales meeting or a conference, say something, and then marketing content, LinkedIn posts, emerge and appear such that I can very quickly increase my speed to market. That's for me, and I'm sure all entrepreneurs out there, it's all about speed to market. How can I get a great use case or a great quote or something like that out there fast, right? So for me, for her, it's how can you help us get a lot faster?
Agreed. Makes total sense. Well, Peter, thank you so much again. We greatly appreciate the time. It's awesome to hear about Mova.
Thank you for having me on. Absolute pleasure.
For anybody out there, if you've got a call center, I can't recommend reaching out to Peter enough. So, all right. Thanks, guys. And we'll see everybody back here next week for episode 18. Have a great week and weekend.
Thanks, Peter.